The forest breathed like a living thing. The wind carried whispers too delicate to belong to leaves, and the shadows twisted between the trees as if listening. Red tightened the hood around her face, clutching the wicker basket that swayed with each trembling step. Her grandmother's medicine clinked softly inside, a fragile sound swallowed by the thick fog curling around her boots. The trail ahead looked alive, roots like veins, moss pulsing with faint light. She thought she saw eyes once, reflected in the fog, but they blinked out before her heartbeat settled. The air grew colder, heavier. A wolf's cry shattered the silence, distant yet near, and the forest seemed to lean closer to hear her fear. Beneath her feet, something faintly glowed through the soil, a heartbeat that wasn't her own. The whisper rose again, clearer this time, a voice neither kind nor cruel. Would you still follow if the stars whispered your name? The silence that followed felt heavier than sound itself. Red pressed forward, her boots sinking softly into moss that whispered underfoot. She tried to hum to calm herself, but the tune faltered when the trees began to change. Their bark grew darker, twisting upward as though resisting the sky. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, her pulse matching the rhythm. Somewhere behind her, leaves rustled in a pattern too deliberate to be the wind. She stopped to catch her breath, the basket's handle biting into her palm. Her eyes darted across the undergrowth. Nothing but trees and shifting mist. Yet, deep inside, she felt that same pulse again, soft and steady, like a heartbeat under the ground calling her name. Branches creaked above, heavy with mist. The air turned thick, carrying whispers that seemed to come from all directions. One voice rose above the rest, a soft hum, ancient and kind. "Follow the light beneath," it murmured. Red hesitated. The whisper grew stronger, now beneath her feet. She knelt, brushing aside damp leaves. The light pulsed again, brighter this time, forming symbols she couldn't read but somehow understood. "You're not alone," the voice said, faint but real. For the first time, she smiled, not because she was safe, but because the forest wasn't silent anymore. The forest had changed overnight. Red could feel it in her breath, in the way every leaf seemed to tremble with unspoken intent. Dawn light never reached the ground here. Instead, threads of golden mist slithered between the trunks like restless serpents. Her grandmother's path was gone, replaced by new trails that twisted and looped upon themselves. Fear crept up her spine, soft and cold, until she heard a sound beneath her steps. Not leaves, not roots, but something whispering her name in a voice that shimmered like the surface of water. She crouched, her hand brushing the soil, and again the faint glow appeared. This time she didn't pull back. The ground pulsed once, and something ancient stirred beneath. A slow awakening that felt like the forest drawing breath for the first time in centuries. The whisper returned, no longer soft. It carried rhythm, words, emotion. It wasn't frightening anymore. It was lonely. The voice spoke as though it remembered her, though she'd never heard it before. It told her not to run. The light beneath her hand flickered, forming gentle spirals that danced around her fingers like fireflies. She sensed it now, a presence older than the forest itself, waiting, patient, kind. Then came a sound that did not belong. A low growl, heavy with hunger. The light retreated, vanishing into the ground like frightened birds. Red stood, her basket pressed to her chest, eyes scanning the dark pines. From beyond the fog came slow, deliberate footsteps. The wolf's scent filled the air. Iron, pine, and old sorrow. He was close now. The growl deepened into words. They slid through the air like smoke. "You smell of light." The wolf said, his voice low and trembling with something between hunger and recognition. Red froze. No one had ever spoken in her mind before, yet his words filled her skull like thunder. She wanted to scream, but instead she whispered, "You can talk." The forest went utterly still, but before the wolf could move, the ground beneath them pulsed again. Brighter this time, defiant. A burst of light flared upward, forcing the wolf back into the shadows with a snarl. Red stumbled but didn't fall. The glow spiraled upward, forming the faint silhouette of a creature with no true form, its body woven of moss, roots, and luminous threads. The air smelled of rain and ancient wood. "Do not fear the dark," it whispered through her thoughts. "I have waited for you." The light faded, but the warmth remained. Red stood trembling, her breath rising in silver clouds as the forest exhaled around her. The voice in her mind softened now, calm, melodic, and ancient. "Do not run from what you do not understand," it said. She turned toward the faint shimmer before her. The creature hovered between being and nothingness, woven of moss and stars. Its form shifted like a memory trying to take shape. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Lumos," it answered, "the one who guards what remains unseen." For a heartbeat, fear dissolved. The forest no longer felt hostile but alive, as if every leaf leaned in to listen. The wind brushed her cheek like a promise. Lumos' voice shimmered through the air, not spoken but felt. It told her of the forest's curse, of light bound by darkness, and of a shadow that had once been a protector before hunger claimed it. Red listened, heart trembling, the truth sinking deeper with every breath. The wolf had not always been a monster. He was a fallen guardian, his light consumed by his own longing. The revelation struck her like a spark. She wasn't just walking to her grandmother's house anymore. She was walking through a story the forest had been telling for centuries. "Why help me?" she asked. Lumos paused. The air shimmered, and for an instant she glimpsed a memory not her own. A forest burning under silver flames, a young girl in red centuries ago, standing exactly where she stood now. "Because you carry her light," Lumos said softly. "The flame she left behind." The words left Red breathless. Her grandmother had told her stories of guardians, but none like this. "How do I use it?" she asked. The creature's light dimmed, its voice growing faint. "You do not use light," it said. "You become it." From the depths of the forest came the sound of shattering bark and grinding earth. The wolf was moving again, closer than before. The light flickered uneasily. Lumos shifted, its glow intensified. "He hunts the spark you carry," it warned. Red felt the pulse of the forest echo inside her chest. She looked down at her hands, now faintly glowing, where Lumos' light had touched them. "Then he'll have to find me first," she said, voice steady. The pact was sealed not by words but by light. Red lifted her glowing hand, and Lumos mirrored the gesture. Between them, the air folded into a spiral of energy that fused their heartbeats. The forest shifted, its branches trembling as if exhaling after ages of silence. A warmth bloomed within her chest, not power, but belonging. The wolf roared in the distance, his cry shaking the fog apart. Red smiled faintly, her eyes steady. For the first time, she did not feel alone. Night arrived too quickly, as if someone had torn daylight away. Red and Lumos stood beneath a sky that shimmered wrong. A moon too large, too bright, and far too near. The light it cast wasn't gentle silver, but pale, sickly white that turned the trees to bones. "This isn't real," Lumos murmured. The forest groaned, branches bending toward the ground. Every sound was distorted. Whispers echoed before they were spoken, footsteps repeated themselves. The wolf had begun his game. "He will twist your sight," Lumos warned. "He feeds on doubt." Red's pulse raced, but she steadied her breath. "Then I'll see with more than eyes," she whispered, taking her first step into the illusion. The forest became a maze of moving light. Every path she took folded back on itself, and every sound seemed to come from behind her. Once, she saw her own figure walking away in the distance, as though the forest were replaying her choices in reverse. Lumos glowed dimmer now, its voice breaking. "Do not chase what moves away," it said. "Only the heart knows forward." Red closed her eyes and listened. Not to sight, but to rhythm. Somewhere deep below, she heard it again. The pulse that had called her since the beginning. When she opened her eyes, the false moon began to bleed. Crimson light poured through the mist, and the ground rippled like water. The wolf's shadow moved through that reflection, smiling without form. "You can't save her," it whispered. Her grandmother's voice twisted with sorrow. Red's knees buckled. "He's trying to make you see what you fear most," Lumos said, its voice flickering through the noise, but she didn't cover her ears. She looked straight at the illusion and whispered back, "Then, let me see it clearly." The illusion shifted again. She stood now at her grandmother's door, though she knew it couldn't be real. The house was wrong, too still, too quiet. The scent of flowers replaced by cold iron. A candle flickered in the window. "He wants you to knock," Lumos warned. Red stepped forward anyway. "If he hides behind her face, I'll still face him." The latch creaked as she reached out. She opened the door. The false moonlight poured in, revealing not a home but a hollow reflection. Walls made of mist, chairs of shadow, and at the center, the wolf smiling with borrowed eyes. His voice filled every corner of the empty space. "Light burns those who cannot keep it," he hissed. "Give it to me, and you can go home." Red stepped closer, the glow from her palms rising until the air trembled. "Home isn't a place," she said softly. "It's what remembers you when you're lost." The false moon shattered, and the illusion fell apart in 1,000 shards of silver dust. The forest lay still after the illusion shattered, its silence deep and trembling. Red stood among the falling mist, her chest heaving. Lumos hovered beside her, its glow dim but steady. Then came the sound, slow steps, heavy and deliberate. The wolf emerged from between two blackened trunks, no longer a blur of shadow, but a shape solid and scarred. "You've seen my false world," he said, his voice quieter now, almost human. "So see the truth." His eyes, pale and endless, reflected no hatred, only weariness. Red didn't back away. "Show me then," she whispered. The wolf turned his gaze upward, and the forest responded. Branches curling back to reveal a broken sky. "Once," he said, "I was light. I guarded this place as Lumos does now, but I wanted more, to see beyond what light could reach." His words flowed like wind through dead leaves. Red felt them inside her bones. "When I reached too far, my light burned away. What remained learned to hunger." Lumos' glow flickered faintly, its voice barely a whisper. "He was my brother once." Red's throat tightened. The air trembled as truth took shape. Light and shadow were not enemies, but fragments of one whole. Red stepped closer. "You weren't born a monster," she said. "You became one because you forgot the warmth of what you protected." Fenrir's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. "And what would you know of loss?" he growled softly. She met his gaze, voice trembling, but strong. "Everything I've ever loved lives inside these woods. If I stop believing they can be saved, I become what you are." The wolf's head lowered, his massive frame shaking. Lumos shimmered between them, the air charged with grief and grace. The forest trembled as memories poured through the trees. Flashes of a younger Fenris and Lumos standing side by side beneath radiant skies. Then the light split. One became shadow, the other chained by duty. Red felt their history surge inside her veins like a flood. "The curse was never meant to punish," Lumos whispered. "It was meant to remind." The wolf lifted his gaze. "Remind us of what?" "That even light must learn mercy," Lumos replied. The ground pulsed again, roots coiling in a slow heartbeat. The truth fell quiet, leaving only the wind. Red looked between them, the broken guardian and the fading one, and understood the choice before her. The light she carried could restore balance, but only if she gave part of herself in return. You can't hold both, Lumos warned gently. Light burns as much as it heals. Red smiled faintly, the kind of smile that belonged to someone who had stopped being afraid. Maybe that's what it means to guard something, she said. To hurt and still stand in the glow. The wolf bowed his head. Then the forest might forgive us yet. The first light of dawn trembled through the trees, yet the forest remained dim, trapped between night and morning. Red felt the air vibrating with quiet urgency. The world seemed to wait for her decision. Lumos flickered beside her, its light growing thinner, threads of moss unraveling into air. Your spark awakens, it whispered. But every flame takes what it needs to live. The words sank deep inside her as warmth bloomed beneath her ribs, spreading to her palms until they glowed like tiny suns. The wolf watched in silence, his silver eyes reflecting her rising light. You will burn yourself, he murmured. Maybe, she said softly. But I'll light the way first. Her heartbeat echoed louder now, sensing with the rhythm of the earth. The light coursing through her veins didn't feel foreign anymore. It felt like something ancient she had simply forgotten. Lumos' voice grew faint. You were never meant to carry it alone, it said. But you can finish what began long before you. The forest swayed in agreement, leaves whispering in long-forgotten tongues. Red lifted her hand. Light spilled upward, scattering through the canopy like falling stars. The wolf stepped closer, his shadow stretching long across the glowing ground. You remind me of her, he said quietly. The first flame. The one who tried to free us both. Red's breath caught. My grandmother? The wolf nodded once. Her light still lingers in your blood. His gaze softened, the hunger gone. If you let the forest take you, it will live again, but you will fade like all who burn. Lumos pulsed weakly in warning. Red looked between them, beast, guardian, and girl, and realized there was no longer a line dividing them. The ground beneath them began to quake, roots lifted like serpents encircling Red in rings of glowing light. Lumos' arm began to break apart, its fragments spiraling toward her chest. No, she cried. You'll disappear. The creature's voice was soft, but steady. I will live wherever your courage shines. The light struck her, wrapping around her body, like armor spun from dawn itself. Her hood flared outward, her cloak blazing crimson gold. When the shaking stopped, silence fell. The deep, sacred kind that follows creation. Red stood glowing with inner fire, every heartbeat casting ripples of gold through the forest. Lumos was gone, yet she felt its pulse within her. The wolf bowed his head, shadows sliding from his form like shed skin. You are the forest now, he said softly, and I am only what you forgive. Red looked to the horizon where the true sun finally rose. The forest shimmered awake, alive and breathing. Then, let there be morning, she said. Dawn swept across the evergreen like breath, returning to a sleeping giant. The trees straightened, leaves unfurling to drink the light that poured between them. Red stood at the center of it all, her hands still warm with the pulse of the flame inside her. The air hummed softly, filled with the echoes of Lumos' last song. Not words, but feeling. The wolf sat nearby, his silver fur brightened by sunrise. He looked smaller now, his power dimmed, but his eyes finally at peace. You did what I could not, he said quietly. You remembered mercy. Red stepped closer, kneeling beside him. Then you remember light, she replied. That's enough. The light within her pulsed once more, calling her deeper into the forest. Roots parted before her steps, petals unfurled as she passed. Every sound felt familiar. The whisper of leaves, the sigh of soil, the song of the wind. They spoke in the same voice that had once frightened her. Now she understood. The magic had never been separate from her. She had simply learned to listen. "Lumos," she whispered to the light beneath her palm. "You're home." She reached the edge of the ancient lake, the heart of the evergreen. The water mirrored her perfectly, but the reflection wasn't just her face. It was every guardian before her, every spark that had ever burned to keep the forest alive. She could feel Lumos there, waiting, and beyond it, the memory of her grandmother's smile. "It was always meant to return to you," Lumos whispered from within her chest. "The flame isn't a gift, it's a promise kept." Red closed her eyes and let the light flow through her fingertips into the lake. The lake's light burst upward, carrying the last of Lumos' essence into the sky. It split into countless streaks, each flying toward a different tree, a different branch, a different leaf. The forest itself began to glow, alive with 1,000 tiny suns. Red stood at the center, arms open, her cloak billowing as her body became one with the radiance. The wolf howled once, not in hunger, but reverence. The sound rippled outward, a farewell carried by wind and light. When the brilliance faded, the forest rested in perfect stillness. Red stood beneath the real morning sun, no longer glowing, just breathing. Human again, but not the same. Lumos' voice was gone, yet its warmth lived quietly in her heartbeat. The wolf's shadow lingered at the edge of the trees, before melting into light. She picked up her basket, its glass vial of medicine still inside, untouched. With a faint smile, she began walking toward her grandmother's cottage, a path no longer haunted, only watched over. The forest whispered softly behind her. If fear could speak, whose voice would it borrow?